Make my own rules, play my own games. I don't give a what you
Hi,
say.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Steph,
And this is the Psychom Hotline.
where we gossip about all the cringe and exciting ways science is communicated in real life.
So let's bring the drama.
Wild and free.
Hi, Ray.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I realize I'm good. I was going to say hi, Steph, like the way I do it. And then sometimes I hear myself and I'm just I don't want to have that tone. I hate that tone. And it might be because I'm overhearing myself. So it's like, hi, Steph. Hi, Steph.
Wait, what do you mean, what tone?
No, like, like when you can say, hi, Steph. Hi, Steph. Hi, Steph. And I'm, I'm over conscious of how this moves up and down.
Yeah,
So now
yeah.
I'm trying to,
Now you're going to be all sultry. You're going to be like, hey, Steph.
hello, Stephanie.
Hello, Stephanie.
How are
Hello,
you?
Estefania.
Oh, Stephanie. Your dad says Stephanie, right?
Estefany.
It's every time you tell me something that your dad says, it's like you say it like that. So now, like, if you say something before that, I'm like, oh, Stephanie.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, how is it going? How are you?
I'm doing well. I printed out. I'm like a lazy Halloweener because I never do Halloween decorations. So I printed out Studio Ghibli themed stuff to make like
Cute.
I'm gonna do this three has. I'm gonna
Nice.
do it yourself Halloween stuff. If you can't see it, if you're not looking at the video, it's the three green heads from Spirited Away that are just like this disembodied
They just
head.
hop around.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put them on like a stack or something outside. I printed a bunch of stuff, like the little spirit kodamas from Princess Mononoke.
Do you
I'm
have
gonna.
trick-or-treaters?
I think so. I hope so. Maybe.
Okay. We, live in, a corner, and there's no sidewalk, so sometimes there's people that, walk up and down the street, but our house always gets skipped for some reason because it's just, hard to see in the corner, so, the past 2 years, we'll stand outside and hold out candy, and there's people that will literally, drive by us because then our house is, too scary, quote, unquote, "too scary" because, I'm in a Bible Belt, and, my husband and I will, decorate with, Jason and, in the windows, just scary figures or, my husband wore, a creepy mask, and so they'll, when they walk by with little kids, they'll just skip around our house. So I was like, "We're just not gonna trick or treat this year."
That's an
I know.
accomplishment. So what have you been hating on this week?
Well, I have a lot of personal hates, but I'm actually gonna share a hate from a viewer, or not viewer, I guess a listener that I really
Mhm.
resonate with. So this listener sent in a pretty, juicy topic that I'm like, "Ugh, I get it." So they're working as, a freelance contractor for a large, science corporation, and they are helping them, do this impact campaign where they are pretty much interviewing different employees of this, science organization. But this organization is, massive, and they have a lot of money. But they're also the type of organization where, they wanted stuff done yesterday. But one thing that they mentioned in this message that cracked me up was that the how this organization overuses the word authenticity. So it's we're this really large organization that has a lot of money, but we wanna come across as, casual and authentic and, candid. And so this person is just like, "Okay, how does that make sense of, you have so much money, you're already known as, this big organization, but then you wanna come across as if you're not? What does it mean to be authentic in the corporate setting?" And I thought that was a pretty good question, because, we talk about authenticity a lot, and even in some of, the production or producer summits that I go to or when we go to Jackson Wild or whatever, we always talk about the authenticity of the person, of the host or the science communicator, and how authenticity really attracts people to building trust or building rapport or being a face of a community. But what does that mean? What does authenticity mean in a large organization? And this topic really resonates with me because it really gets underneath my skin because I've encountered something similar where this corporation will use the word authenticity, but it's just what you're asking for is very detailed oriented and specific. So what does it mean to be authentic?
Right, right, right. Interesting. I so this is like another side of this where I get so annoyed with a lot of these words that seem similar in definition. So like you try to like learn about authenticity and then there's honesty, there's integrity, there's benevolence. So authenticity on its own, I'm this is my literal answer to like, "But what is authenticity?" Right? I feel like authenticity on its own is very much focused on this idea of um like you are this person that is like sincere and original and like genuine, and there's like honesty, transparency, and all of that, but you're bringing a lot of like your personal history and your values and who you are with your quirks, with your humor, with everything. um and there is like a alignment between what you say and what your values are, right? And that is kind of like you're like, oh, like, but then what about like honesty, right? Or like what about integrity, what about all these different things? And I think there's like the difference that an authentic person can be bad, right? Like if I'm authentic, I might say, here's my personal history, I'm a horrible person, and my values are like, I hate eating babies, just like eating them up, go.
I'm authentically a serial killer, you know?
Authentically serial killer, right? I mean, you can be also honest about being a serial killer, right? So, yeah, there's like you have like benevolence, and you're like, okay, if you're a benevolent person, authenticity is a part of it, but it might not be enough for it because like you have to be authentic, but those values should actually also be good values. And I think what is difficult with places like corporations and stuff is the value part is tricky because the history and everything sometimes points to exploitation, sometimes points to products that are like horrible, sometimes points to people associating a lot of corporations with horrible things. So they start hiring people or social media influencers and all of that to become either knowingly or unknowingly the voice of those products or corporations. And then that's where I think gets really tricky because you're like, but if I'm authentic and I'm representing a corporation and they're paying me, like how much of that is authentic, right? So it comes in with a lot of different.
Yeah. I think where this is coming into is that, like, we are in the creator economy, so to
Okay.
say, in
Mhm.
terms of, like, everything that we do in terms of marketing or building community is all done in the digital space. Now, like,
Mhm.
everything is done online. It makes me think of a comic strip that I saw on Instagram that cracked me up, but it's like this guy is representing, like, these, like, little people, like, shapeless kinda people, and then they put a pineapple on their head, but the pineapple said "trend." And so then, like so people started picking up, like, more trends, so everyone's doing the trend, and all of a sudden, like, this big blob comes in, and it says, like, brand, like, the blob is labeled brand, and then the brand puts the pineapple on their head, and then everyone's like, "Oh," and they just, like, walk out. And so we're like in this scene where it's just like brands and organizations, corporations, whatever, like for-profit companies have to survive and market on social media platforms. But, some people lean into having a very curated thing, and some not people, I guess some organizations lean into having like a very curated thing, but then others try to lean into like, oh, how do we resonate with the youth and
Right.
like jump onto these trends? Cause like brand accounts are infamous of like having a social media manager that is like the voice of the brand commenting and engaging with like content online. There's this one newsletter that I subscribe to called Link in Bio. She's pretty much like a social media manager. She has a Substack that I really
Mhm.
enjoy. That kind of what we do, where we like she looks into like what are other organizations doing well. She'll interview the social media managers themselves to be like, "Oh, what was your plan for this? What was your idea for this? Like, how did you do like what was your strategy essentially into like your marketing campaign or to building the brand or the voice of this specific organization that you're working for?" And it's been super interesting. But again, I see the term authenticity thrown into there as well. So like one example that she uses, not similar to science, but, like Wimbledon, like the huge,
Mhm.
like, tennis
Yeah.
match. Is it called the Wimbledon?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Where they did a lot of, like, marketing that was, like, authentic to their brand. And so,
Mhm.
like, but authenticity for them just meant, like, they did I don't know if you ever saw some of their content where, like, they added, like, microphones to, like, people that were sitting in the audience and just, like, listening to have conversations,
Uh-huh.
or, like, eavesdropping on, like, celebrities that were, like, watching whatever. So I guess that was, like, authentic to their ecosystem,
Right,
but sometimes that can't translate to, like, other organizations. And
right.
so when you go ahead.
No, I wonder if like it's also like these organizations knowing what they can and cannot be authentic about. Like if I'm like, listen, I understand. Like I am not like I am not the field museum that is a place for people to go, and I have like sued a T-Rex or like all these things that like feel like it's a character, but the character starts like really connecting with people, and then people are like,
Mhm.
I know it's not real, but there's this like something about the voice behind it that starts
Yeah,
feeling
like the rover, like, someone made a Twitter account of, like, the Mars rover.
curiosity and spirit and all of that, like, a lot of, like, those kind of stuff. I know, like, that's not necessarily authenticity as, like, a person, but there's something about the values that these organizations have that are about, like, public, goods and stuff like that versus somewhere like Wimbledon, um, understanding that they are not that, but being like, we understand we're entertainment and we're authentic about being entertainment. So we're gonna show you how people are like enjoying what we have or anything. And I know we are not using authenticity right as we like keep moving between different topics, but it's more about, I think, in this conversation, what your actual values are, who you know you are, what you're pretending to be, like the voice you're putting out. Is it actually your voice? Is it actually, yeah, continue. You were gonna,
No, I think that yeah, I think that's good. I was gonna go into, like, an example, but I think it's not relevant because I think that's what it is essentially with, like, brands and their marketing tactics or, like, large organizations that are trying to, like, be trendy and be now to attract younger viewers, younger customers, younger audiences or whatever. But I guess that's interesting of just like, okay, like every brand has their mission statement
mhm,
essentially, or like, yeah, I guess the values of the customers that they're trying to attract in order to get them to like align with their mission or value to either like sign up for their nonprofit or to buy this specific thing. So that like the person that sent the email in, they're like subcontracted out. So, like,
mhm,
what does it mean to, like, keep the voice of a brand and to make sure that it's, like, authentic when you're working with, like, an organization that is, like, huge multi-million dollar type of organization? Like,
right,
what is authentic about
right.
a large tech company, for example?
Right. Honestly, I think a big part of that is what you don't say you are. Because I think a lot of times bigger organizations, whether in science communication, anything, to seem authentic, sometimes they might go overboard with like, but we have this and these are our values. And it's more like, when you see something that doesn't fit, that stands out to you. That's where the backlash is. He's like, no, that's not your value. That's not who you are. I know, like, this ad that is supposed to be family friendly and authentic and real. Like, you have paid like million for that. When it's too in your face, people backfire rather than you deciding that, like, okay, I am not that image. Can I accept that and move back on what that authenticity looks and start somewhere like more basic, like maybe bring more humor, maybe bring more um like real people into the conversations that I have rather than pretending that I'm this like extremely value based, real, down to earth, because I'm not those things, right? I think the problem happens not about what you put out, but the amount of things and how unrealistic it is. It's okay, I think, to put even a little bit of authenticity if it feels more connected to you. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, one of the things that comes to my mind, can I talk about, like, one that is more controversial to me in my head? And I
Mhm.
had a reaction to it was, Selena Gomez's brand, and I don't know it. I think it's True Beauty.
Rare
Look,
beauty, rare beauty.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't know much about it. I don't follow it as much, but she was talking about like our models. They're like these are real women, like very normal faces. Da 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 da. And I think there was something about it where I thought, you're beautiful, you are gorgeous, you look amazing, right? And you're very rich, so you have all the things to make your face be this amazing beautiful model like. So it's like her and like everyone else that are like normal looking. And there was something that I thought, I appreciate what she's doing. Like again, I don't know much, no judgment. I'm just
No,
talking
no.
reaction to the fact that she was like, these are real authentic like women. And I was like, yeah, but like it's yours and you're the main face of this. So
Now that made me think of no, there's literally the beauty community is always a good example of that because, okay, I'm trying to think of, like, how to tie it back to, like, what we're talking about with authenticity, but just quick gossip on TikTok was a while ago, there's, like, this huge beauty YouTuber named, like, Michaela something. She's from
mhm.
Boston, so she has, like, a Boston accent. Kim Kardashian is, like, you know, she, like, talks like that, whatever, but she came out with, like, a skincare line about, like, I want every woman to feel, like, beautiful and, like, in their skin, but it's a skincare company, and then, like, the photo campaign that she did with it, everyone was wearing makeup, so people were like like, "What sense does this make?" And so it makes me think of, like, large organizations of where you're saying, like, "Okay, how do they pose themselves as being authentic, but also recognizing where they can't or, like, like, where they are not?" Because, like, I wonder what the line is of marketing and then not I don't know if disillusion is the right word or inaccuracy almost in a sense of like, okay, so for example, why I resonated with this person's story was that, you know, I work for a lot of corporate clients as well. And the corporate clients want to appear that they're like down to earth when in reality they're not. They're a large organization with a lot of money. And so that comes with like when they do like any kind of video campaign, they don't want their names to be brought in. They
Mhm.
don't want any mention of it to make it seem like they're coming across as like white saviors or something like that. Or like they want these videos, like if someone were to stumble upon it on social media, that they wouldn't know is actually from the large organization
Right.
at first, unless you like pause and like read that it's by them. You
Right.
know, so like is that like is that a lie? You know, what would you describe that as? Just like, you know?
Oh, it's so interesting you say that because there was, like, this paper, I think it was in Saffron's paper on, like, authenticity, and I think they were also talking about this idea of, like we had an episode on how much transparency is too much transparency, right? Like,
Mhm, mhm,
we are
mhm.
supposed to be transparent, but, like, do you say everything? And the same topic kinda came up with, like, authenticity, like, how do you decide, like, how much do you wanna be authentic about something? Um yeah, I don't know, cause like, they were talking about, like, some of, like, the ways you also, like, build authenticity, and one of the things that stood out to me as you were, like, talking about these examples with, like, the beauty community and stuff, I think those are, like, so much easier to build that authenticity compared to when you have, like, corporations. Because with corporations, it's kinda like I don't know, like, with, like, beauty, nutrition, supplements, these are the kind of stuff you're really, like, going on TikTok, and someone is like, "Oh, I'm just doing my makeup. This is the makeup I'm using," which is, like, so easy on my face, or, like, I recently, again, like, I've been, like, dealing with some, like, very uncomfortable, like, health stuff, and I'm, like there are moments that I'm just so desperate, and when you don't have actual experts or doctors that are there to listen to you and give you good advice, like, you go on the internet. And right now, my go-to is Reddit, and I read these, like, personal narratives, right? Which that's like one of the best ways to build authenticity. You just have first person narrative to talk about things. And I read those and I'm kind of like, oh yeah, like what worked for them? And I'm gonna do that. And then you have like the people that are like, I use this product and it helped so much. And what I
Real quick, and may go ahead, keep going real quick. I have something though. Finish your thought because I have another example for that real quick,
okay, because
sorry.
you got really it's okay, now I wanna hear that, but okay. So, like, you go on Reddit, and then there's, like, this one person is like, "This product is great, I actually used it." And then there are other Reddit people who's like, "I've noticed this is the first time you have posted ever." So you're like and then you go down, and someone else is like, "I had the same thing, and I used this product, and you're great." And I'm like, "These are the authentic placeholders to make me think this product is something that people use and everything." And then it's interesting because, like, once I have one person, because I'm desperate, I'm not thinking, I'm like on heuristics and stories. And then someone is like kind of fact checking it as like, well, this is your first time like posting. Then I start actually looking up, I'm like, this product, does it actually work? And then you see like evidence is like, no studies on that. This is just like not for like healing, it's just like gets rid of the symptoms, da 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 da. and then you kinda, like, calm down and you're like, "Okay, I think I fell for the authenticity trap."
No, but yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, before I forget.
No, 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 just like focus.
No, because it makes me think of, like, user-generated content, like, the reason why organizations reach out for, like, authentic science communicators or for, like, influencers or small creators is because of yeah, they pose themselves as, like, these authentic, real, down-to-earth people, and that's how they're able to, like, market their things. So, like, one
Right,
example, I hate that on fucking TikTok where I'll be scrolling and I'm thinking it's a story time, like, this person is just like, "Oh my goodness, like, I was, like, doing this, and this, and blah, blah," so I'm, like, invested in the story time, and then all of a sudden you realize that eventually it's just like, "Yeah, so that's why I decided to use this, like, product," and I was like, "Ah, I should have noticed that there was,
yeah,
like, a link in bio in the hashtag or something like that," like, this
yeah,
person baited me in a sense of, like, there's like, they got hired to produce user-generated content that came off authentic based on, like, their real lived experiences, but now you're pushing a product. And
yeah,
so, like, sometimes it can work, sometimes it can't, because then I read the comments where people are like, "Girl, get your bag," or whatever,
mhm,
or people are just like, "Oh, this is obviously an ad." Like,
yeah,
I didn't like, you wasted my time with the story time when it wasn't. Like, how do I even know this is a real story time or if you're just using this to
right.
for the ad or whatever?
It's just that's the interesting part of it, that you have to have this, like, authenticity meter as because there are stories that involve a product and organization that are authentic and are actually authentic. Like, as I'm, like, reading these, like, Reddit stuff, there's like, "Oh, I used this and this and this and actually worked," and, like, 10 other people are like, "Oh, fuck yeah, like, this is actually truly the miracle work," whatever, whatever. So you have those, and some of that ends up becoming like, how do you decide if something is authentic and good versus authentic? Sorry, it's the perception of authenticity, but it's not actually proven or worked on, or like someone is just like making up a story. And the other side of that becomes even a lot of these corporations that are like paying like in sciences, right? Like I'm sure like when you work with a lot of those corporations and they're like, hey, like highlight our scientists, like in so many ways that is like the voice of these scientists is supposed to be like authentic because they are actually doing good work, because it is actually valuable. It's the difference between they are authentic and the perception of authenticity, right? I think it's the word
Mm,
perception that is a little difficult because you are working with people that are authentic. You might have a product that is like authentically actually really good. But then, as a communicator, as a media producer, you are supposed to create also the perception of authenticity for the audience, right? And you might be like, hey, I know the scientists that y'all are working with are authentic. I know your intentions are good and everything. It's just a little hard sometimes to build that perception because of the nature of the organization, because of the context, sometimes because of the platform you want this to be on, right? Even the platform decides like if people see something as authentic or not. So there's just like so many different things that go into the perception of authenticity that makes things hard.
I think that's it. I think that's it. The perception of authenticity is a good point because it makes me think of I mentioned in our last AI episode how I had to replace a background for one of my videos, and one of the notes I got from the client was that, like, "Can I massage or finesse the border so then the person in the video looks more casual and authentic?" And
Mhm.
then part of me is kind of, like, frustrated of just, like, what does it mean to look casual and authentic when I'm literally green screening the background, you know? So but I think, you saying it's, like, the perception of authenticity, maybe authenticity in this case is, like, makes it look real, but then again, is this deceptive? Is it deceptive to just pretend that they're in a real place rather than just leaning into the fact that like, "Oh, maybe this person just, like, recorded themselves remotely in a green screen studio."
Right, right, right. I think that will end up like, yeah, depending on like who the audience is. Like if the audience is already like, oh, these are cool people, I'm sure like they're like in a difficult place, so they had to like screen it. That might not be a point of judgment. At the same time, someone else might be like, if someone is like already suspicious, like, what are they hiding in the background? Or like, oh, like, why can't we just see you on a normal setting? You think you're better than us? Like better than us, this value based thing might come up. So depending on also like what values I ascribe to you, I will judge that green screen differently. So a lot of people will probably watch that and be like, yeah, we all use green screen. Maybe this guy is like in his lab working, things are hard, so you have that. And someone else might be like, yeah, like why you too good for your normal home? Sorry, like can we not?
Yeah, and I guess, like, it comes down to there's only so much control over, like, perception or control of, like, how organizations or even, like, independent creators or whatever they have in controlling their own perception of authenticity, but that reception of that is going to be different based on whoever that person
Right.
is, whoever the consumer audience or viewer is.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was the paper the Saffron paper that I was reading about like authenticity. They were like trying this like different ways to create authenticity. So like the four conditions they tried was saying like a personal narrative from like the first person view, talking about like your origin story of your interest, so like a personal origin story of your interest, then talking about like your research and how the results and outcomes might be uncertain, and then talking in retrospect that like, oh, I did this study and I did an error, so it's kind of like that honesty part. And I think when we think of authenticity, we might think of like all this different, like, oh, I think like the green screen might have an impact, what they say might have an impact, how they say it, da 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 da. In that specific study, what they realized was that mostly the things that had an impact on authenticity perception was the first person narrative and the personal story. So if they talk about like, oh, like I might be making errors or we might be uncertain in the future, it didn't have an impact on authenticity perception. If they said like, oh, in the past I made errors, it didn't have an impact. It and it's in some ways it's actually both comforting and annoying at the same time. Comforting because you're like, "Oh, maybe, like, authenticity is not, like, as fragile," right? And maybe you can be perceived as, like, honest, right? So it's be like, "Oh, it's a scientist who's honest," but not necessarily, like, authenticity might not, like, translate to it. At the same time, like, the frustration is like, "Oh, give me the formula, like, tell me, like, this and this and this is gonna work." Um the other thing that I thought it's maybe when we make a lot of comparisons, like in research, is usually like based on control. And the control might be like, I'm not saying like I'm 100% right. I'm so sure, right? So I'm not comparing making a statement that about uncertainty compared to someone that is like 100% certain. It's just that I'm comparing it to someone saying like, and these are probably our findings. And I already maybe assume that science has a little bit of uncertainty, so when we think of authenticity, maybe it's not that we are comparing an authentic person with a normal person that goes on screen. Maybe it's more like I'm comparing them with someone that is inauthentic. Because there's like this in between. It's authentic and inauthentic. But like
Yeah.
most people are like kind of in between, maybe.
I think that makes sense too, because bringing it back to like what you mentioned in the very beginning of like how we use authenticity, almost like AI. We just use authenticity as like a catch-all term when it's like, oh, do we
Mhm.
actually really mean honesty? Do we mean transparency? And those are just like the subtypes that go into the overall perception of authenticity.
Right.
And maybe the perception of authenticity is just like trust, like what
Mm.
you're saying.
Mhm.
It made me think of a conversation that I was having with someone because I was telling them about like me having this idea of wanting to talk about authenticity on our podcast at some point. And then this person is like, well, what does it mean to be authentic? Because like as people, we can show up differently based on who we're even talking to. So there's different levels or different faces of our authenticity. So like even you and Ray, not even you and Ray, you and I, Ray, as we start this podcast, like our friendship is authentic in the terms of like our friendship is real, is not manufactured, but we do like self-censor a little bit and we put a lot of thought into like, okay, what are we actually going to be saying? Maybe we shouldn't say this so we don't jeopardize our careers if we're like too real and too honest.
Right.
But I guess our humor and our friendship is still coming across authentic. What is the percentage of our authenticity in doing this podcast?
Right.
And then, for like these organizations or even no, maybe not organizations, maybe for like science communicators, like we always bring up Alex, shout out to Alex, as like an example again, because it's like our friend. But Alex still is like, I don't know, maybe not Alex, but like other science communicators. When we stick to just science communication, we're only showing just one side of our personality, like one side of like our professional or authentic professional voice. and we don't really know the other parts of your life unless you, like, are personally friends with them, you know?
Right.
So we can even say that for, like, content creators and influencers, like, for influencers that are like mom talks,
Mhm.
mommy influencers where they're, like, showcasing their day-to-day life, but it's still only, like, a few seconds of, like, their perfectly curated, mommy vlog, and you don't see the mess in their house or, like, their kid throwing up in the background or like that. So, like, we still heavily curate what it means to be authentic in the digital
And
space.
I think the good ones, those good ones, every once in a while, they have a story that is like, I know you guys love what I do, but look at this chaos. So they kind of have reminders that, like, I think there's something about, like, I am telling you that what you're seeing is curated, and this is the part that is not curated. And in this way, they're like bringing that authenticity. And for a lot of people that do science, like Alex, who does mostly science, it's like bringing a little bit of those like quirks that you have and other sides of you. Like Alex's obsession with blimps,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think is hilarious. But like the amount of like I think authenticity that comes with that, like you're like, I don't have to open up like my whole life, but I'm gonna bring something that is very much weird me, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I think that like brings some authenticity with it too. Or I don't know, like talking about your dog, like all of those different things. There are ways to bring that authenticity, and it doesn't have to be all my life, all the things opened up. And I think something that you mentioned was interesting, this idea of as you become authentic, you have to also do all these calculation of like, what is the authenticity that we're not bringing in? Because I think something that is associated with that, with authenticity, is vulnerability, right? Like how much you're basically sharing emotions, feelings, stories that are associated with risk. That's what like vulnerability is, right? Like it is associated with risk. And based on our audience, for the purposes of authenticity, right, and trust building and relationship building, we are deciding what are vulnerabilities that we are open to sharing, right? Like
Mhm.
there's so much stuff I also don't share, which doesn't make me inauthentic. It just means I don't owe you anything. It's kind of like a
Yeah,
chaperone.
yeah.
It's kind of like I'm giving you all of this. I don't owe you all of like anything. So yeah, and she has a good relationship, but she's also like open about like what she's willing to share and not share.
Yeah. Ooh, Chapel Roan, that can go down another rabbit hole.
Uh,
Because it also makes me this is not related, but it makes me think of yeah, I guess because 'cause I'm 30 and, like, everyone around me is, like, having babies that I get a lot of, like, mom talk shit or, like, baby stuff on, like, whatever. Oh my goodness, but this is really sad. But there's an influencer, millions of views, like, not millions of
mhm.
views. She probably has billions of views and has millions of followers. And, oh, maybe this is a little bit too dark. But this woman used to share a lot, like, her family. She's, like, a mom influencer. But recently, she kinda went ghost, and then, finding out that, like, her child passed away, in a
Oh,
very horrific way.
no.
And, time kinda goes by, but then because she's a big figure, people are, like, speculating what happens. The reports finally come out, and you find out, like, the truth of what happens or whatever. But she eventually, after kind of, like, all of that, she comes back onto the internet to, like, start making videos again. But so people in the comments are just kind of like, "Oh my god, like, how can she do that? Da, 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 da." But then other people in the comments are just like, well, like, this is her day job. Like, it's kind of like how life is where, like, when tragedy happens, you're still expected to show up, and show up to work and make your money. So, like, being an influencer is her full-time job. Um, and so but she was still making her videos where it came off very like, "Come clean my house with me, like, come run errands with me," still trying to make it seem like it's normal, but then there was a moment where I guess there was, like, so much chattering going on in the comments that she, like, made a video being like, "Guys, like,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be inauthentic, I'm not trying to lie to you, I am only showing you the best parts of my day because, like, what I went through was, like, horrific."
Right.
And, makes me sad.
Oh.
And, so she's like, "I'm only showing you, like, what I'm capable of doing because, like, I'm still grieving, you know?
Mhm.
And so, like, I do my best and I'm just trying to show up and just trying to like, this is like a creative outlet of, like, making me feel a sense of, like, normalcy and, like,
Mhm.
the sadness of, like, losing her child is only, like, 2 or 3 years old, like,
Oh,
really sad. This is like a fucking stranger I don't even know, you know?
mhm.
And so, like but, like, you have, like, a sense of, like, understanding. And then, like, a couple of days later, she's going back to, like, vlogging or whatever, and there was a video where she was like, um, she wanted to decorate for Halloween in her kitchen, and she, like, opens up a bag, a box, and, like, she, like, pulls up, like, a little trick or treat bag that her son had last year, and
Mhm.
so she, like, took a moment, it cuts to, like, a picture of or, like, she's it was, like, very, like, "Oh, I just found, like, these box of decoration, like, let's decorate." So she's opening it up, she's like, "Oh, look how cute, like, this was actually a trick or treat bag." But then it cuts and it's just, like, her crying. She's like, "I wasn't gonna include this in, but I just wanted to be real with you and the fact that, like, I just had to take a 3-hour break because I just, like, broke down seeing, like, this bag and remembering my son, but,
Mhm.
let's keep moving forward." And so she just kept, like, decorating or
Right,
whatever. And
right.
so and so it's just like, yeah, I guess, like, with uh I didn't cry when I watched this, but seeing it back, it's really sad
Mhm.
and fucked up when you think about it.
Mhm.
And so, like, yeah, I guess, like but then people in the comments are just like, yeah, she's showing up. She's showing up, and she's only showing, like, a portion of, like, her reality, but it's still, like, authentic because I guess with that vulnerability.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's just like, "I'm no longer showing my children moving forward. I'm not showing
Mhm.
my spouse moving forward, and this is the boundary that I have with my audience of, like,
Right.
what I am and what I'm not showing, and this you're
Right.
only getting, like, 30-second clips of my day. Like, you don't know the reality of, like,
Mhm.
m my life right now."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, the fact that yeah, the fact that first of all, like being in public face, like in such public facing thing after like his loss like that is first of all crazy. And I think a big part of it also just like the fact that like you don't get grieving time.
Yeah.
It could be so many other jobs too, but
That
especially
just took us down, like, a rabbit hole, I'm so sorry.
well, well, I actually think this is a really good example because like as I was listening, I'm kind of like, what would have happened if she would have given the audience nothing, like nothing,
Mhm.
nothing, right? Like, no, let me tell you, this is what I am. No, like, pause. Here's what here's like me breaking down. Because the truth of like communication is like you put something out, the audience interprets it as something, and communication is for your audience to understand something, to change an attitude, behavior, understanding, anything like that. So I hate to call it that. I really hate to call it that, but just like thinking in a technical sense,
Yeah.
it was strategically a very wise move to be like, this is what I do because my audience keeps coming back because they perceive me as a certain type of person. So everyone can create the content that I do, but because of the connection the audience has with me, they keep coming back to me. It's the internet. Everyone creates the same thing. And if
Mhm.
that connection is what matters, it looks like so she also is also paying attention to her audience. It looks like that audience is not getting the right feedback, is not understanding who I am because they just saw something happen. Then it's like radio silent about that reaction. So they have their assumptions about who I am. And if I want to keep this connection, I need to like go back and tell them like, okay, like you have these assumptions about me. This is how I am now, right? And I'm just letting you know, and I'm done. Like, I'm not gonna go back to this. On one hand, I'm like, this is very good communication decision making. On the other hand, it breaks my heart that she even had to do that, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
you wish we would all be like,
Understanding. Yeah, like, this person just lost a kid, let's not
right,
fuck with her comments or say
right.
like, get speculate on her marriage or whatever, you
Exactly,
know?
exactly. And at the same time, social media is designed, right, for a lot of people to make money off of like the craziest, weirdest thing. So it also sometimes makes sense for the audiences to have all this like weird assumptions and be like, oh, like it's done. It's like now about like getting attention again. Or there are a lot of content creators that are like using their children for money making in ways that is like so like wrong, wrong, wrong.
Exploitative. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. So it's not like some of the assumptions are not coming out of nowhere, nowhere, right? At the same
Yeah.
time, like I think we can agree that different narratives can exist together and different feelings and different audiences. And some of them are very painful, and some of them are like painful, but I understand where people are coming from. And I wish she didn't have to do it, but she did it, and it was probably a very good like strategy. So to just like reminding everyone that like no, I am still authentic, I am still giving you that, because you want to. I think what was happening was that people associated her with certain values that she was showing through her content that was authentic, and now they had questions about her values, so she had to come in, reset that, to gain her perception of authenticity again.
Yeah. I wonder what the narrative would be for, like, large organizations.
Mhm.
Like, whenever they go through, like, a PR crisis or
Right.
something like that, or like um oh, yeah, I guess a PR crisis is a word. I don't know what another word is where it's just like a big spectacle. I don't know what the word I'm
Oil
looking for.
spill, their own oil spill.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, 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 right. And
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that that goes into, there's like some interesting stuff on like what is a good apology, right? Like whether it's
Mhm,
an apology
mhm.
video or a corporate apology, where you have like all these like greenwashing movements of like, yes, that happened, but now we are doing this. And
Mhm.
once people start digging, you can tell like, well, that doesn't mean anything. You're still not doing anything. You still haven't changed much, which is why there's so much of like integrity involved in these kind of situations. Integrity meaning what you say and what you do match. And a
Mm.
lot of times with these kind of disasters is like, we have learned our lesson. We're gonna do better, and they don't do better. So how
Mhm.
do you have your apology show that you're doing better, keep that like in the timeline, also continue being like, see, we did better, we're changing this, this is all the things we have done. So it takes time, and it involves a lot of integrity, and then showing again perception of integrity as well. So do it right, and make sure everyone knows that you're doing it right.
That's interesting. I think this is a good place to kind of, like, start wrapping up. So
Yeah.
any final thoughts, any final tips on what does it mean to be authentic as, like, an independent communicator or for an organization that's trying to be perceived as authentic?
Don't go overboard with an authenticity that you don't have. Like, authenticity doesn't come from you saying, look at all these values that I have, if you don't have them. If you don't have them, don't mention it. Like, don't pretend to be like building this perception that is not there. Kind of figure out, even if you're like, if you have like some basic values, figure out what those are. What are the ones that have been out there? You can kind of like use it as a social like credit and be like, yeah, I might not be like the best person that does that, but I'm funny.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like maybe that's a thing that I could bring out and talk more about, and like how like humor and like my quirkiness is something that like I always try to be like true to myself about it. And even like one of the things that is important I think in authenticity, I don't know like how much research is around it, but it's this like unruliness where like the world is this but I'm doing this, no one says that but I am saying it, right? That brings
Mhm.
some authenticity. So even if that is a part of the things, in a safe way, whether it's like your humor, your quirkiness, that you're always like, oh no, 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 I'm gonna try to like fit in and not bring that, like no, like talk about blips, like
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
talk about all this like fun things that like people are like, oh, that is like weird and cute and fun and all of that. So you don't have to go like too overboard to be seen as inauthentic, especially for companies. I'm like, if you're not that great, don't pretend like you are.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think thankfully, because of the ecosystem and you and I are in, um, I think most companies that we work with are like actually good people with good intentions that are helping, science outreach, a science ecosystem. So the values and everything exists. It's just all about how do you package it depending on like which category of those companies are you in. Are you a nonprofit? Are you a foundation? Are you a corporate? Are you a university? those make a huge difference, and then figuring out like how much like money, openness, time will you give me so that I can get to know the subjects really, really well so that I
Yeah.
can help you show their authenticity. Because if you give me money to interview someone and you give me money for 1 hour, I might not be able to get enough out of them. But if I have a week with them, I will learn about things that I would be like, dude, this is the story. This is what you should talk about in this video, in this podcast. So invest on communicators and media producers, time with subjects so that we build that rapport, we build that connection, so that we can also figure out what is the authentic stories that we can tell about them.
Yes, yes, exactly that. Exactly that, right? Because I think that's, like, the frustration that I had too with, like, some of these corporate clients that I have of, like, where they want authenticity, but then if I only have an hour to interview them and you also want, like, direct talking points that you want them to say, like, there's only so much authenticity that it can go without it being like, "This is just a commercial. This is just, like, a campaign to, like, promote your thing and to put you guys in a good light." And there's only so much editing and producing we can do to make it come across as authentic.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah. So those are very thank you for your words of wisdom, Ray.
Oh
You're
my
so smart. But anyways, with that being said, we'll see you all in the next episode. And yeah, next episode will be our last episode, and then we're gonna take a little break. And then hopefully, next year we can start inviting some guests. I think that'll be fun. Our last episode, we want to talk about creeps. So send us your creepy stories. Please send us whatever creep means to you. Is it someone weird, someone that stalked you, someone that like did something that grossed you out, or an organization that you saw that you're like shady?
Mhm.
Yeah, send us your stories at psychomhotline.com or drama at psychomhotline.com. And yeah, please tell us, give us some gossip. Bye. Bye.
Make my